KHOU 11 meteorologist Kim Castro. We've got a close eye on the tropics, specifically the Gulf, for an area that is likely to become a dahlia by next week. It is Saturday, August 26th, and here is your tropical update. The National Hurricane Center now upping this area of convective storms to a 90% chance for development over the next 7 days. Over the next 2, a 70% chance. And we are seeing some significant developments from yesterday. So yesterday we saw a lot of building and collapsing, signaling that this storm really didn't have its act together. It was really trying to moisten up the atmosphere. And this morning, it's doing a better job of that. We're seeing a concentrated area of those bright whites. So some better building before just collapsing. This Invest tropical wave 93L is going to take a while to brew in this region before it moves on. Right now, 25-mile-an-hour winds. It is moving north at 10 miles an hour, but really over the last frames, it looks to be pretty static, pretty stagnant. So they might be dropping the forward momentum and progression of this area of convective storms. Visible satellite showing us a couple of different features as well. So we're seeing some overshooting cloud tops, again, indicative of some good vertical development. We're also starting to see some outer convective bands there starting to form, but we'll have a couple of factors that inhibit its development in the short term. In the long term, it's looking pretty promising that it could start to ramp up some of its fuel capabilities. So right now, a couple of different areas to watch for. An upper level low directly to its west. This potentially is going to nudge it a little bit closer towards Cuba. So some land interaction, which could again inhibit its progression in the short term, but not a lot of disruption there. And then you'll notice this area that's pretty convective free. It's clear. Usually you'd see some cloud cover in this area, at least some moisture signs, but no, this is an area of high pressure there. So some drier air getting entrained into the storm in the short term. So that could potentially at least halter its momentum briefly. It'll give it more time though as it moves on to get a little better intensity. So we'll look at what factors it has working for it. It definitely has a lot of heat. Notice the heat content, sea surface temperatures, those maroon colors signal not only are we at the threshold, we are well above. In fact, once it crosses the Caribbean and heads to the eastern Gulf, look at these water temperatures. We're talking 86, 87, 88 degrees, ample fuel for this to pick up once it's able to pass through that Yucatan channel. Let me tell you, not only does it have the warm sea surface temperatures, it's got another ingredient working in its favor. It is not going to have a sheared environment, so very favorable conditions. Notice these areas that I'm highlighting here, these signal winds that are rapid aloft, so in the upper levels, wind working in opposition with the storm motion and storm formation, which would allow for the storm to become ripped apart or sheared. Well, you'll notice that's in its periphery, not in its direct line of travel. So forecast is for this to move north, and in this area really does not have disruption from the wind. So that would pretty much allow it to build to its heart's desire. GFS model showing there lingering for quite some time. So that's a snapshot very early now, Monday morning, 3:30 in the morning, still churning, trying to pass through the ship channel there. Cancun, so potentially the Yucatan, Cuba seeing impacts through the weekend, definitely some heavier rainfall potential there. And then once it passes, once it lifts north to the Gulf, that's when we start to see the tightening here. So the isobars, the pressure lines really starting to signal that we're seeing not only an organized area of low pressure, but a very intensifying scenario potentially starting to come into fruition. Now, these are all model assumptions. Right now, we're not going to have a good understanding as to what's really going to materialize until we see the system actually develop. Right now, it's just an area of interest. Invest 93L, and once it actually gets some characteristics of organization, we'll have a better understanding and a better trajectory for what's actually going to happen here. But this is the American model, which last week was not showing much of anything other than just an open wave of disturbed weather. Now it is on board and starting to have better agreement with the European as far as not only organization but potentially intensity and the potential area of impact as well. So I'll take you forward through time here for the American model GFS there, 7 p.m. on Tuesday, continuing to lift northward and really wanting to make its push towards the peninsula. So anywhere from Pensacola to Tallahassee, that's what the GFS has pinged as an area to pay special attention to. Now let's take it over towards the European. So same deal there as far as the stalling potential. So like I mentioned, a couple different factors going to slow down and hinder, disrupt the development in the short term. In the long term, things are looking good, and that's why both models have pretty explosive development in the long term. But short term, so through the weekend, very early Monday, still making it through the Yucatan there, not out of the Caribbean. Now, as we go into the Tuesday early morning time frame, now we've cleared this area here. Now we've cleared Cuba, still seeing some heavy downpour impacts there, and the tightening of the isobars now taking into effect for Tuesday 5 a.m. will continue through time, and this takes more of a northeasterly approach. So the Europeans thinking for the present time, again, not having many pieces of the pie to work with yet, many pieces of the puzzle, Tallahassee to Tampa is what it's thinking. So further east and a little bit further south along the west coast of Florida, that's what it has as an area to pay special attention to. But notice, regardless, both are showing pretty good consensus and confidence that this could definitely ramp up quickly, and we know why. It's got everything working in its favor. So it's got the amplified fuel source, and it's got unsheared open playground to basically just take off. So that's early on Wednesday. Timing and location is going to change model run after model run, especially once we start to see the actual formation of the system. Let me show you spaghetti plots as well, because there's been a little variability with this over the last couple runs. So they were initially showing mostly the peninsula there, the panhandle. Now the latest morning runs were showing a little bit further towards the west, and the latest development is a little bit tighter. Notice there's a couple of rogue plots, a couple different perturbations, a couple of variabilities with each model run to take into account different elements. But for the most part, it's got a pretty good consensus that this is going to be potentially a panhandle landfall. Now, a couple of them wanting to hint at Mobile, Alabama. It's still very, very early on. I can't stress that enough. These are just assumptions and guesses without having the full picture and without having very key ingredients to consider. But for the time being, it's not early enough. In fact, the time is now to prepare, and these are the areas that we have to watch for. So anywhere between Pensacola to Miami, I would say, even stretching into eastern Louisiana, a couple different factors could skew the motion, but for the most part, the Western Gulf is going to be protected by this front right here. So it's really going to be Eastern Gulf that we've got our sights set on for the progress of this area of convective weather, which is expected to become a depression shortly and expected to become a dahlia as we head into the coming week. Slower development for the weekend, but things could ramp up very quickly thereafter. So wouldn't be surprised, we're already starting to see some good development, some healthier convection on imagery this morning. So definitely keep a close eye. We're going to have these tropical updates twice a day at least. Once we start development, seeing that come to fruition, we'll keep you updated even more frequently. But of course, throughout the day, we are on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. These are my handles, Kim Castro, weather, Kim Castro, KHOU. So just reach out there if there are any questions or any concerns for the time being. But definitely I'll keep a close eye on this. And I think those questions and concerns might become a little bit more focused once we see that storm get a little bit better organized and become an actual system. For the time being, wishing you a good and healthy weekend.